So, happy Friday. This is Max, and he's going to help us out with the video today. I thought, since it's, casual Friday, that we could have a guest on the show. Today we're going to be taking a look at the comments from the sight reading room, and then I'm also going to read out some of the top comments from you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get started. Alright, Symphony sight reading. Basically all tick marks in the one column from the sight reading judge, attention to task and focus, evidence of preparation, effective use of time, posture and position, note accuracy, tone quality and blend, articulation, bowing, dynamics, after which she wrote lovely, and appropriate tempo, which is good. That's always something that's sometimes hard for me to gauge because I kind of have to pull it out of the air. Hi. In the to column, though, we did get 3 little check marks for note accuracy on, and then she wrote C sharps and F naturals, intonation, which, okay, the piece is easy enough, it shouldn't be out of tune. Style, and she wrote next to it spiccato, so let's see what she had to say. Ensemble characteristic comments. Well-trained ensemble, take care with key signature changes. Musical characteristic comments. Excellent tempo, tempo changes and dynamics. And then on strengths, it says focus, preparation, tone, and rhythm, areas to improve, bowing style at the tempo changes. There must have been, I don't at this point remember very well, but there must have been a spiccato section right after a tempo change. I kind of vaguely remember that. Okay, and then bowing, okay. Key signature changes, areas to improve, yeah. And then she wrote, congrats, exclamation point, well done. So, good job. I thought that our sight reading was very successful. It was actually kind of a tricky piece. I remember there was a lot of roadmap issues that were kind of hard for me to catch, but you guys did a great job, so that's awesome. Now we're going to read some of the top comments from you guys over the course of this week. Basically, I just picked 5 for each class, and I highlighted ones that either I thought brought something different to the conversation, or made me think about something in a different way, or just made me smile or laugh. So let's see what we got. All right, first comment. Overall, I'm very pleased with our performance and the judges' comments. I also found it entertaining because of your comments and facial expressions. By the way, I totally agree about the break. I love the break. Of these 3 pieces, I am most proud of the Grieg. I think we played it best, and I think the judges would agree. I didn't realize how beautiful our dynamics were until this video. I know we have played the Mozart better than that. I think the balance was great, but there were some big intonation issues that aren't usually there. Lastly, on stage, I thought choreo was not together at all, and I was trying so hard to listen and stay together, but after hearing the recording, we sounded great. If anything, I thought articulation was a bigger issue, along with the bow placement problem. Still, I thought we did very well for each song, and I'm happy with the judges' comments. Yeah. So this is a great comment. I think it's awesome when you listen to yourself back, and it's actually better than you expected. I think a lot of times our perception of how a performance is going is very skewed, and it can be skewed positively or negatively. Sometimes we think we did great. When we listen back, we're like, oh, and sometimes we think we did terrible, and we listen back and it sounded fine. I think it's actually very similar to taking a test. Sometimes you walk out of a class feeling like you aced it, and then later on you find out that you failed. So, interesting perspective. Okay, second comment. I agree with the fact that we are a more aggressive sounding orchestra based on what I was hearing, which I think is why we can play choreography so well. I definitely think we should have been able to have better intonation and rhythm accuracy, but overall I think we did pretty well. It was just a couple spots in the Grieg and the Mozart instead of all over in both of them. Yes, anybody can have a few intonation slips, right? That doesn't mean that your orchestra plays out of tune. I think that the spots that we had trouble with intonation were particularly difficult spots, and I think that overall our intonation was good. So we are an orchestra that plays in tune, but we need to make sure that when we rehearse, we focus in on the spots that are giving us trouble. So yeah, very good. Next comment. This judge seemed to comment on something different on each song. For the Mozart, it was mostly accents and being precise with rhythms. For the Grieg, it was our intonation, which was definitely a weak point in that song. And for choreography, it was the bow placement. I think that out of all of those points, our intonation was the most noticeable in the Grieg, which should be rather easy to fix. Yeah, so I liked this comment because it really zeroed in on what the judge said about each piece. And like I mentioned in the video, I think that judge really hit the nail on the head as far as pointing out what we need to work on for each one. Saying the intonation is rather easy to fix, it is and it isn't. I think that it's relatively easy to fix on an individual basis, but I think tuning within the ensemble is where we could have spent a little bit more time, maybe thinking back to all the time we spent on it. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that it's easy to say, oh, just play that in tune, but then when you hear yourself within the larger chord structure, that's where it gets a little more difficult. Next comment. Oh, this one just made me smile. That's why I chose it. First off, I think Mads did an amazing job with the announcing. Go Mads! 3 exclamation points. For Mozart, I'm glad that he commented on the bow placement. I remember Miss Kaiser fixing that in class many times with the violin specifically, and I'm glad that it worked out. And OMG, Rachel / basses. I could hear you guys so well even though you are literally like one person. Persons in parentheses. I agreed that a lot of the dynamics could have been more exaggerated. For the Greek, some of the intonation issues definitely came from the seconds, parentheses, sawi, but I thought it was still really pretty. It feels really different compared to when we're playing it. Listening to it is definitely less stressful. For choreography, eek! I now really want to see the video rather than just the audio so I can see how I messed up the bow placement. I think overall it sounded really nice. And then in all caps, and go James! Woo! 3 exclamation points. Final note, I love your gamer setup, Miss Kaiser. It made me smile. Thank you. I also really like your plants. I'm so proud that they are still alive. Yes, as of right now, if we're doing Plant Watch 2020, they are still alive. So I will keep you updated on that scenario. Last comment. After listening today, I'm slightly questioning why yesterday's judge didn't mark us for intonation under a 2, because the more I listen, the more issues I seem to find, not only in the Grieg, but also in the other 2 pieces. And after he pointed it out, the 16th notes did seem to be executed quite aggressively, so I suppose we should be called the aggressive orchestra. I still think the Grieg was our best one out of the 3, despite the intonation problems, simply because I thought that was the most interesting to listen to. Although there might be some personal bias involved, as that was my favorite out of the 3 to play. Because there were a lot more shapes and expression involved. And then she said, podium out here saving the worst cellist in Symphony. This was possibly the most interesting comment to me because of when you said, I'm surprised that yesterday's judge didn't mark us for intonation under a 2. And the answer to that is because they don't get to listen to it more than once. You know what I mean? Like, they have to make their decision based on immediately when they're hearing it. Sometimes judges err on the side of being generous, and sometimes judges err on the side of being critical. But when you're in that moment and you're hearing it and you have to immediately make a decision, your feedback is going to be different than if you got to listen to it multiple times. And if he had gotten to listen to it multiple times, maybe we would have gotten a 2 for intonation. So you have to ask yourself, what do I strive for as a musician? What are musicians supposed to strive for? Are we supposed to strive for a performance that is perfect to the ear upon listening to it because music is a live, a performance art? Or do we strive for a performance that is perfect upon intense scrutiny? And I think living in the age of technology like we do, where you can record something and play it as many times as you want, you can slow it down and listen to each individual note for as long as you want. I may have said this before, but I had a teacher in high school when I was preparing for Allstate. He would record it and then he would play it back to me at half tempo, and the slightest just waver of tone or pitch he would mark in the music. Living in the time that we do, where that is possible, turns music and the experience of performing music and listening to music into something that is even more critical. Because imagine yourself back in, the 1800s or before,
where that wasn't possible. You couldn't record music. You would have to formulate your opinion of the piece based on hearing it that one time, right? And you may never hear it again. So I don't know, this would be something that I'd really like to hear you guys talk about in the comments of this video, of your thoughts on recording and how the act of recording something changes your experience of it. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Max has been a trooper. I will see you guys on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Bye.